You've heard the saying that the people you surround yourself with, you become the most like. And obviously, I'm sure that you've seen this to be negative or positive, depending on the people you choose to surround yourself with. And as I've grown, I've started to see that. I've gone through lots of different friend groups as I've outgrown them. And I have this one specific story that forever changed like my outlook on the people I surround myself with, basically. So going way back, this is in 2020. Basically, I moved to Los Angeles when I was 19. So that was like beginning of 2018 to basically grow my video production company. That was my dream, go out there, do, film work, music videos, commercials, things of that nature. And long story short, COVID hits. So 6 months into being there during COVID, we were like, you know what, this is not going to work. Rent wasn't getting cheaper. We weren't able to do work. So we had to come back. And, mind you, I moved straight from my parents' bedroom into Los Angeles, right? So I've never really seen any in between. And I moved back to Kansas here with some friends of mine, right? So there's like 5 guys in this house, I think. There's a few people on the bottom floor, a few people on the floor above. And I mean, we're literally paying like $150 in rent or something absurd, just something super cheap. All guys living in here. And it's exactly what you imagine 5 guys living in Kansas to be doing. Like everybody's smoking weed every second of the day. It's everyone hanging out playing video games. Not really much going on beyond some music being made by some of the artists that live there. And I had picked up a lot of bad habits from Los Angeles, and coming back into it, it was just like the ultimate comfort zone, right? Now, mind you, I actually, during this time, this is when I got back into the gym. I used to be serious about like lifting and stuff, lost it during COVID. And then when I came back to Kansas, because we actually had gyms open here, they weren't open in California, I started getting back into fitness. So I also started getting back into eating correctly, because my natural state is to just shrivel up and be skin and bones, because that's just I have no appetite. So starting to lift again, starting to eat again, and just getting back into the swing of things, while also trying to quit smoking weed, trying to quit all these other bad habits that I had, and being surrounded by it, obviously. And I actually did a pretty damn good job. Like, to be honest, I'm extremely surprised at myself. Like, I was meal prepping while living in this house. I was waking up early, going to the gym. Like, I was still doing everything, and which is honestly surprising to me. It was kind of like that resistance training of my willpower in a sense. But obviously, I cracked a lot, and obviously, I never really got a lot of momentum during that time. But I remember specifically, and like where I'm going with this is just to kind of paint you the picture on like where I was at this house, and mind you, we had people come over all the time. Like, there's just constantly people over. There'd be 10 people in that house almost every day, or at least a few times a week. And, I had a friend of mine who always would come and visit, still a good friend of mine. He and I were walking, and I was asking him about like, hey man, I'm thinking about moving out. I'm thinking about getting my own place. And basically I was like, hey dude, like, would you want to come live with me? And he basically goes, I don't really want to put you in a bad spot. I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm not very like well off financially right now, all these things. But he stops and he looks at me. He turns and looks at me. He goes, Thad, you should find some new friends. Just very seriously looks at me and says this. And it just, I don't know how to explain it, just hit me so hard. Like, hearing that come from him. For him, and I think you also have to think, like, for him to have the humility to say that, he was talking about himself as well. Like, he was talking about himself as well. For him to have that humility to see that, like, the people I'm around, even including him, was not, like, a positive influence on me, it still to this day is one of the things, it just blows my mind. I don't know why. It just blew my mind that when he said that, I don't know. It just hit me really hard. And I was sitting here like, wow, damn, he's probably right. And ever since that day, I think it just hit me and I was like, yeah, okay, I need to get away from that. So, I eventually did end up moving out and there's lots more to go with that story. But I just think it's interesting that the environment that you're in, I think, shapes you to such a high degree. And it's very easy to blame yourself for having like bad habits and things like that. Like, quite frankly, for me to be in that situation, then I'm like, oh, I'm going to quit smoking weed, and then be in a situation where everyone in their house is smoking weed. It's like, you're not even giving yourself a fighting chance. And I think that these things happen a lot with whatever bad habit you may have. But I will say the environment is extremely important. So if you're in an environment right now that is making you basically give in to things that you shouldn't be, or people who are influencing you in that certain way, it's definitely worth just changing your environment. And honestly, that might be expensive. It might be meaning to move out on your own. For years and years and years, I always wanted to live alone. I finally, this year, this is living here in my apartment. This is the first time I've ever lived on my own. I've lived with friends, roommates, things of that nature. But like, sometimes I think you need to cultivate your environment to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. If you can do that with people, awesome. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be easier. But I don't know. I think that the environment, it's really going to craft the direction that you go. So that's just my thoughts. Really thought it was interesting. Definitely, I guess, take a second look at the people you surround yourself with and ask, where you think that they're going to be in 5 years, 10 years, and would you want to be like that? So that's my thoughts.